Alright, welcome back. V.O.C. College Football Thursday here. Home. Had to come home for some personal stuff. Let's get into it. Like I said, I had to come home. Personal things. This is my life right here. I fucking forgot my suitcase full of my clothes, right? All my clothes, my light for the actual lamp I have to use, so I'm using makeshift lighting. It doesn't look terrible, but it's not as good as regular lighting. This is my life. I fucking forgot my suitcase. Now here's the other thing about the suitcase. I don't even know if I left it outside of my apartment in the parking lot or if it's still in my room because I never grabbed it. I don't even know. I didn't even realize I left it until I got back home yesterday. I went to the car to grab it. It wasn't there. This is my life. This is how fucking idiotic, crazy my life is. I don't even know. So hopefully when I go back tomorrow, my suitcase will be sitting in my room. If not, the suitcase is gone with my toiletry bag, so everything, deodorant, toothbrush, everything, clothes, light bulb for the light, my sandals, which I wear all the time. So pretty much, if that suitcase is gone, I'm fucked. So I don't know, but hopefully it's not. But that is my life. I still can't believe I fucking forgot that suitcase. But it is what it is. But like I said, let's get into it. College Football Thursday. You'll see from the title of this video, I'm still not a big fan of these college football rankings. They suck, right? And I'm not just like honing in like, man, these ranks, boom, boom, boom. There's no consistency with these rankings. Let me turn my ringer off here before I get into it. There is no consistency with these rankings. We value this team this way. We value this team the other way. We don't. There's no set criteria of like we value every team the exact same way. Pretty much this week with what the rankings showed, Georgia being 1, Bama being 2, Oregon 3, Ohio State 4. Clearly, you can win a game and it can be the closest game ever with the worst team ever, but you win that game, they don't give a shit, you won. Because Alabama had a close game, Ohio State had a close game, Cincinnati had a close game, and pretty much they just sat back and looked at it and was like, fuck it, you won. That's all that matters. You're going to stay where you are. So that's a good. Just win your games, right? So if you're Cincinnati, like the way this thing's looking to play out, just win out, and you'll have a legitimate shot to get in, right? But my biggest problem is the consistency, right? Like, so Michigan is 6, Michigan State 7, right? MSU just beat Michigan a week ago, but Michigan State just lost to Purdue, right? I have no problem with Michigan being ranked ahead of Michigan State. I have no problem whatsoever, right? I do think Michigan's a better team, but they lost, right? But I have no problem with them being ranked ahead. But that is where the consistency thing doesn't make sense. If you go by that criteria of Michigan ahead of MSU because MSU lost more recently, then where is the credibility with Ohio State being ahead of Oregon? Ohio State should be ahead of Oregon then, right? Oregon beat Ohio State, and then they lost a few weeks later to a 3-6 Stanford team. So technically what the committee's saying is technically, okay, MSU, you beat Michigan, but you lost most recently, so we're going to put them ahead of you. Then why is Ohio State not ahead of Oregon? This is the problem with these rankings. We tell one team, we crucify one team for this, and we give another team. That doesn't make any fucking sense to me. It doesn't make sense. These rankings are so inconsistent that there's no base of like, okay, this is kind of what we're feeling of like, okay, maybe this happens and this is how you can get in and this. We have none of that. These rankings are so bad that you don't know what you're getting yourself into. We don't know, right? I get it's a TV show. This is what most of the rankings are about. And this is what they want us to do. They want us to sit there every week. And like this week, the way they did it was terrible, terrible. You had to watch a basketball game, which I have no problem with. But, you tell us the rings are at 9:30. It's a basketball game. It was Michigan State versus Kansas, so I had no problem. It's a big basketball game. But you then make us sit there till 9:30, show the ranking, 5 seconds of the rankings, and boom, done. Like, no, these rankings are more valuable than just 5 seconds. Like, we need some more talk about the rankings. Like, it just does not make any sense. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. So, like I said, that doesn't make sense to me. There's no consistency there. And then they had the committee chair come on, who's the Iowa AD. He's an idiot. he comes on and says, well, last week we valued Michigan and Michigan State very closely. Then why the fuck was Michigan not 4 and Michigan State was 3? If they're that close, if they were that close last week as they are this week, then why was Michigan, who lost to MSU barely by 4 points, could have beat them, but then why weren't they 4? That's where the rankings, like, you just said that to cover your ass for having them ahead of Michigan State this week. Like I said, I have no problem with it, but that doesn't make any sense. Don't throw us a bunch of shit and then expect us to eat it, because it doesn't make sense. So don't sit there and cover your ass and, like, tell us, well, they were really close. If they were that fucking close last week, then you would have had Michigan 4 right behind Michigan State. But you didn't, because it doesn't make any sense the way you do it. It just... And, like, the questions are very vague that Reese Davis asked, and I get he doesn't have a lot of time, and they don't want to talk about it a lot, but this is where we need to build out the criteria for teams to know, and then we'd get a better understanding for how this fucking thing works, because we have no idea. You just ship 13 people behind closed doors, you throw them in. Like I said last week, one guy talked about how they do it. They rank you in pods of 3, like you go 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, and, like, what? That doesn't make any sense, but if we knew a little bit more of how this fucking thing kind of worked and, you know, established and everything, it'd be better, but we don't. And then the other inconsistent part with no consistency is Cincinnati and Oklahoma. Cincinnati's 5, 9-0. Oklahoma's 8, 9-0. What the fuck's the difference between Cincinnati and Oklahoma? There is none. There is no difference between Cincinnati and Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a bigger name, so you'd think that they would be 5 and Cincinnati would be 8. That is where it doesn't make sense. Oklahoma's going to move up because they play Baylor this week. They play Oklahoma State. They should win those games, so they're going to move up, but it's like Oklahoma should be 6 or 5. Cincinnati should be 5 or 6. Like, they are basically the same team, both 9-0. They've had really close games this year. What is the difference between them? There is none. So it's like this fucking consistency thing there is none. Like I said, these are the things we need to fix before we expand this fucking playoff to 8 teams, 12 teams, because the more teams you get involved, the more fucked up it's going to get, because it's a lot. If it's so fucking hard now to, you know, delegate and we don't understand it, then we're definitely not going to understand when they're arguing over a 2-loss team, a 3-loss team, and a potential 4-loss team. It's going to happen. You're going to get a potential 4-loss team in the playoff because of who they played and some of the teams they beat, right? So it doesn't make any sense. So like I said, these are some of the, and now this is the second week, and I get it, it's a TV show to build it up, but these are the inconsistencies we need to wrinkle out and figure out. If we don't, then these rankings are always going to be a fucking sham, and we're never going to give them the just and due that they deserve, because these rankings, I mean, right now with 4 teams, it values a lot because you only got 4 teams. And to me, it's like not always going bigger is the solution, especially with this one. We don't even fucking understand it now with 4 teams. So like I said, when you start to look at 2-loss teams, 3-loss teams, 4-loss teams, then it's going to get fucking chaotic as fuck. But it is what it is. I mean, the AP did a better fucking version of ranking the teams than fucking the playoff rankings did. I think the playoff rankings, 1/3 of their teams lost last week. Like, your rankings just are kind of a sham a little bit. It's like, the way they rank some teams, it's just, I don't know. I mean, you look at the rankings, and it's Purdue's now 19, which they should. They have 2 top 5 wins. But what's the difference in Purdue and Wisconsin? Like, did Wisconsin beat Purdue? I don't even know. It's like, I think they did, but it's like Purdue has 2 top 5 wins, and they play Ohio State this week. So it's like, oh yeah, they lost to Wisconsin, but it's like they have 2 better wins than Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, when they've played good teams, have gotten destroyed. So it's like, I think Purdue should be ahead of Wisconsin. I mean, Penn State should be ranked. If we're going to go with the 6-3 teams, like, Penn State beat Wisconsin at home. They beat Auburn. Like, there's 2 ranked wins. Like, this is like this just a little shit. And I know it's like nitpicking, but the 2 big things, like I said, is if you're going to have Michigan State behind Michigan, then Oregon should be behind Ohio State, and then Cincinnati and Oklahoma should be back to back. They're the same fucking team. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like I said, these rankings are just, like I said, last week they were terrible, and they proved they were terrible because 1/3 of the teams basically lost, and like it made them look like idiots. But it's like every week there's going to be something stupid because they don't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. Like, it's going to work itself out in the end, but it's like it doesn't make any sense. All right, a lot of big games this week. Starting tonight, North Carolina plays at Pittsburgh. Pitt is 21. They're number 21 ranked. They're 7-2. North Carolina's 5-4. But they just come off beating Wake Forest. They score a shit ton of fucking points. They play no defense. Pitt's a 6.5 point favorite at home. I would go with North Carolina here outright. I think they can score better than Pitt. Sam Howell, for like just the way he plays, it's like I don't fucking get it the way he plays. He just does it. It's Thursday. It's a weird game. I think North Carolina wins. Big game in the Big Ten. Oh, pencil. Number 6 Michigan, who's 8-1, is a 1.5 point favorite, and they go in to play at Penn State, who's 6-3. You know, I think, you know, Michigan coming off the loss last week, beat Indiana, looked like very good for a team that just come off a loss, compared to Michigan State, who lost coming off that win. But I think Michigan had a bad taste in their mouth, and they wanted to get it out. I think Penn State's way better than people think. I think losing to Illinois lost a lot of luster for them. But it's like, I mean, please, like, they beat Iowa if their quarterback's still healthy. Illinois, they were looking ahead to Ohio State. I mean, they had a lot of... This week they play at home against Michigan. I think Penn State wins this game. And I think Penn State wins it because their defense is really good. And I just don't know if Michigan has enough explosive firepower. And what we've seen now from Michigan State is they have no defense in the back end. The Purdue kid threw for 500 yards, and Michigan's kid threw for over 300-some yards. So, you know, Michigan, I think they have some injuries too. So I like Penn State at home this week. I think it's one of those games where Penn State finds a way to win it against Michigan. And it's going to be close, though. Nothing to have to do with my hate towards Michigan. Nothing. I just think I've thought Penn State was going to beat them all year. I just have. This might be the biggest game in terms of like the playoff thing. Because you have number 8 Oklahoma now, who's 9-0, is a 5.5 point favorite against number 13 Baylor, who's 7-2. Baylor just coming off a loss. I think Oklahoma beats them. I think Oklahoma beats them by 2 touchdowns, I think. Like I said, this is like Oklahoma's sitting at 8 now. They slowly have some ranked games against some ranked teams where they're going to move their way up in the rankings. So it's one of those things, like if they win big this week against a number 13 team at their place, easy money for Oklahoma to jump up to 5 or 6, right? But I just think Oklahoma has way too much firepower. They're playing way better with Caleb Williams. Baylor, great season, but you ain't beating Oklahoma. I just don't foresee it. Number 19 Purdue, who's 6-3, is going into Ohio State, who's number 4, 8-1. Ohio State's a 21 point favorite. I think that line is huge, but I like Ohio State in this game just because I think Purdue... Look, you beat Michigan State last week, but I think Ohio State's better than Michigan State. And not only that, you have a lot of emotions coming off that game. What was their next game when they beat Iowa? Now, let me do some research. See, this is a shit I should do before this, but I don't. Because I don't, fuck it, whatever. Yeah, see, after they beat Iowa, they then lost to Wisconsin the next week. So, yeah, easy. Easy Ohio State here. I think Purdue, you've had a nice season. You've had 2 top 5 wins, but no match for Ohio State. I think Ohio State wins out the rest of this. I just think they do. All right, another Big Ten game. Minnesota, who's 6-3, at number 20 Iowa, who's 7-2. Iowa's a 5 point favorite. I'm going with Iowa here. The committee put Minnesota in the rankings the first week just to help Ohio State's case, and then they lost to Illinois. They had no offense, couldn't do shit. Iowa's a better football team, and Iowa's at home. I put this game in here just because it's really big for the Big Ten West, right? Yeah, West. And how that is going to shape up. So, look, it's going to come down to if Iowa wins out, they're in it, right? But I think this is a big game for who is going to go to the Big Ten title game on the other side, right? Like the Big Ten is one of those conferences this year where it's very close, a lot of tough games being played, and a lot of good games that are going to be played at the end of the year. This is the start for that side. 7-2, number 11 Texas A&M, who's a 2.5-point favorite, goes to number 15 Ole Miss, who's 7-2 as well. Look, I have not hid my love for Lane Kiffin and the Lane train on this program here for the V.O.C, but I'm going with Texas A&M. I think A&M's just a better football team overall than Ole Miss is. I think they get the win. Look, I mean, this has been a great year for Ole Miss, but you know, Matt Corral's not been Matt Corral the last few weeks, and they've kind of lost their luster a little bit. He's a little banged up. I just think Texas A&M is a better football team. I think they come in and win it. I mean, look, it is what it is. It just happens where a better football team comes in, and you can't let your heart make all the picks. Me and Lane, we have our train, but I just can't have my heart make all the picks. All right, last game I'll talk about here. Number 16 NC State, who is 7-2, is going to number 12 Wake Forest, who's 8-1. Wake's a 2-point favorite. Wake just lost last week to North Carolina. I think Wake wins. I think Wake gets a bounce back. They beat NC State, and I think Wake is on their way to the ACC championship game, right? Wake still has to play Clemson. This is a good team in NC State that they have to play, but I just think Wake Forest has way too much offense. Last week they just got into a shootout that they just didn't win. They just didn't get that one stop maybe that North Carolina got, right? That fucking game was crazy. They scored all over the place. So I just think Wake's offense is too good, and I think that when you have an offense that can score that much, you just need one stop. Last week they didn't get that one stop. This week I think they do. Like I said, overall, I mean, those are the games. Like, this week's games are way better than last week's game. Last week's game, I was fucking scrunching to fucking find some games. I don't have my notebook that I usually do to show me what I did last week for picks-wise. I don't even remember. So, I forgot my fucking suitcase. So, you're going to expect me to keep my fucking same notepad around. But, I mean, yeah, like I said, it's... You know, the rankings are the rankings. We don't know anything about them because they suck. So it's one of those things. But until we get answers, which we never will, we're going to continue to look at them like they're bad. So, I mean, they did a little bit better, but I mean, nothing, like they didn't, like I said, what they showed is like, if it's a close win, it's a win. Like, this type of committee, these 13 people, it's like, I hate to say it as a Notre Dame fan, but I mean, this is like Notre Dame's sweet spot. Like the last few times we've gotten in the playoffs, we've had like the closest wins ever, and we always used to get crucified for it. And now, I mean, we got in the playoffs, but it's like, fuck, they'd be number one right now. It looks like with this fucking rat pack doing the rankings. I mean, it's just terrible. I mean, the bottom line is Georgia's number one, and it's like trying to pick everybody else is tough, but it's like, you know, you still need fucking consistency in it. Like, it's just come on. Come on. Georgia's clearly number one, right? I think that they're the best team in football, college football, but we need consistency to build out for when we do expand. Because if we don't have those answers when we do expand, then we have no fucking clue what we're doing. But until that happens, which it won't, we won't get answers. They hide everything. I'm gonna sit here and bitch about them every week until I die. But it is what it is. Thanks for watching. That'll do it for College Football Thursday here on the V.O.C.